Hotep is Tanku, Chi Hunta Mao. Greetings and thank you for joining us today as we get ready for our second podcast of Matters for Diversity. Before we get started, I'd like for us to pay homage to the lives that were lost this year due to COVID, as well as the trauma-related and racial, cultural, and social injustices, especially the unrest in Black and Brown communities. I also like for us to recognize the land of Indigenous people, many of whom lost their lives to genocide and were forced to leave their land, the land held by the Ace, Apalachee, Calusa, Timuco, and Tocobago tribes. The Seminole tribe of Florida and the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida are two of the three federally recognized Seminole nations, along with the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. I am extremely excited about Matters of Diversity with Dr. B. I am equally excited about having Sabrina Rosa, and Stephanie Blanco from SGA Leadership as my second guest. These two amazing women are blazing the trail here at UCF. If I'm not mistaken, they are the first Latinx women to lead the students at UCF. So we'll get into some of that when we get the chance to talk. So I will share a little bit about the vision behind Matters of Diversity. I had an idea a few months back about a platform to use to keep UCF informed about the things happening on campus as they relate to equity, inclusion, and diversity. Whether it be administrators, faculty, staff, students, or our community stakeholders. The podcast will be an amazing opportunity to genuinely engage in fireside chats, perhaps difficult dialogues surrounding equity and inclusion. We will be airing the podcast live twice weekly, Wednesdays, and it will be dedicated to the administrative side of the house right here at UCF, as well as our stakeholders from the Orlando community and beyond. We have some exciting guests that we have lined up for the weeks to come. This Friday show is going to be solely for students. And so I would like to have student leaders and students who are here at UCF just to come on and be my guests and to kind of communicate and talk about how they see the world and how they see UCF. So without any further ado, I would like to invite in my amazing guests for today.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I will share with you that I think my screen was dark the whole time. I just realized that I did not click over to have a full screen. So I'm excited to have both of you here. Did I state it correctly? Are you two the first Latina women to be in the helm?
Yes, we are the first women ticket to win. We are the first now Latina ticket to win. And then I think I'm the first Hispanic female president. So a year of firsts along with COVID.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So what has that been like?
It's definitely been an overwhelming experience, and just we've received so much support along the way. I don't think Stephanie and I really realized that running. And I think finding that out after the fact has really just put this pressure on us, but in the best way, knowing that we can now inspire different women to run together and that anyone can accomplish anything if they set their mind to it.
Yeah, I think Sabrina and I kind of really do talk about this a lot, and we always say, oh, we forget that we're the first, Latino women to win, and we just forget about that fact, and the fact that we sometimes remember, wow, we actually did that. It's just an incredible and humbling experience.
Very nice, very nice. So what were some of the things that you wanted to accomplish when you became president and vice president?
I think, it's really funny. I say it all the time. Stephanie and I ran on a very pro safety campaign, and wow, have we talked about safety this year? I'm afraid that we might have jinxed it, so I'm so sorry. But we really did want to focus on safety for everyone, but also for women and minorities, because qualifying in both those aspects, I think, Stephanie and I are very mindful about safety in those aspects, and just really creating an atmosphere where it's just a positive place to be. And I always talk about UCF being home. And it's funny, we spoke to a student the other day, and I think they put it perfectly. They were a transfer student from a small school, and they talked about how UCF felt more like home than a school of 3,000 students. So really just embracing that home atmosphere and continuing that at UCF.
Yeah. So how did you and Stephanie meet? I'll ask Stephanie that question. How did you all get to know each other and form this team?
So we always say that Sabrina and I met in student government, but that's not true. We actually had our summer B here at UCF. We actually had a speech class together. And that's where we kind of like met officially, but then we kind of really got to know each other in student government. So after having that class together in the fall, we were both in the same program in student government, in the Student Government Leadership Council. And that's kind of how we met. We kind of were able to work with each other. And that's where we kind of separated into our own little branches after the fall semester. So in the spring, you kind of transition into a very specific branch. I went to the Senate Leadership Council, and then Sabrina transitioned into the Executive Leadership Council. But even after that, even after that separation and kind of when the program ended for the both of us, we still kind of kept in touch. I know she was in BUCF, I was still in student government, and we were still able to kind of, see what the both of us were doing and still keep in touch.
Nice. So if you could think of what were some of your mentors or things that made you guys get started to get to where you are today, what was that? Who were those individuals, and what made you, whenever you thought that, I'm going to run for president for this student government, what was those things that impacted or influenced that?
I think on a personal level, I have an amazing mentor from high school, one of my teachers, and we still keep in touch to this day. And he's been such a positive influence in my life and my family. Stephanie and I are so family oriented. We would not have done this without our family's support, and they have been supporting and helping us the entire way from the campaign till now. So without them, we definitely wouldn't be where we are. And we both had, I think part of the reason we became so close and we aligned in so many ways is we had really similar mentors in student government. And, I always say that you were raised on certain values in student government. And for us, we were just always taught about servant leadership, and the past president and vice president, Kyler and Madeline, were actually our mentors. So they helped us so much in our 4 years in student government and really showed us the ropes.
I think that's a really important point, right? To have those individuals as mentors. And I'm excited to hear you say that you are servant leaders. I find myself to be a servant leader as well, not just at UCF, but in other organizations that I'm a part of. For those people who don't know what a servant leader is, how would you describe that?
I believe being a servant leader is just thinking about others. Sabrina and I really, when we did want to run, that was really our emphasis that we wanted to make, is be servant leaders. And I think the both qualities that we both possess is kind of not thinking about ourselves, but just wanting to serve for others. I always say that I will do anything for anyone if they ever need me to, they need any of my help. And it's just, we're the first ones to be like, if you need help, we'll be there right on the first step.
Okay, nice. I see you on mute.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it also ties back to our Hispanic values. We were always taught that you put others before yourself. And to us, that ties into servant leadership, that, you're doing this job for one reason, and it's to make students' lives better and impactful. So it's really just about listening and finding out how to make their lives the best as possible, and just taking that and really just taking action on it.
So Sabrina, what was the challenge when you started? Were there any challenges?
Started as president?
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, I think just really adapting. I'll be entirely honest, it's really hard not to compare yourself to past presidents. And Stephanie and I talk about it all the time, especially, being the first women. I think the hardest thing, and I joke about it, is what do you wear? I can't just put on the blazer and the tie every time. It's, you have to put yourself in a certain way. And I think that there's often this stigma if you behave or act a certain way. Stephanie and I had really hard conversations of, we can't do certain things because we're going to be perceived as, a different way. And, I've never been one to really think accept stereotypes. I've never thought that way until I got into this role, and I realized, if I speak in a certain tone, I'm weak or I'm too rude, or, and it's people very much hyperanalyze what we do. So we had some hard conversations at the beginning and really finding our leadership style. And basically we came to the conclusion that we just have to be us. And I think really Dr. Muniz from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion helped guide us as a Latina woman and said, just be yourself and embrace that. And nobody can question it if you're being your true self. So I think that, along with COVID, was a big challenge at the beginning. And we were really able to navigate that.
Okay. Anything to add there, Steph?
I think Sabrina said it all for sure. Definitely that was in the beginning of our transition, that as well as COVID really hit us. We'd never imagined, being in this era or kind of inheriting this pandemic. And it was definitely crazy. But I think no matter what, a question that someone asked me yesterday that I was talking to had asked me a very good question. And it was, would you have enjoyed your time as vice president if COVID hit more than now? And that kind of opened my eyes, and I truly said, and I really do believe this, well, no matter what happened, COVID or not, or Hispanic or not, I think no matter the obstacles that came our way, I think Sabrina and I we'll still handle it no matter what. And we're always here to accomplish what we set our mind to. And we live by that every single day.
Yeah. That's excellent. What have been some of the highlights so far?
Honestly, every single day, even at our lowest lows and our highest highs, I think that this job is the greatest blessing in the entire world. And, my dad asked me the same thing. He was like, would you have run if you knew COVID was coming? And I said 100% yes. Cause I think, I'm a firm believer that everything that comes your way is something that was meant to be there. And, I think Stephanie and I were put in these positions because we were somehow able to handle it. And I think every day and speaking with students is just a highlight and a blessing.
Nice. Steph, anything?
Again, she said it all. I think no matter what, like I said, we're just going to keep on doing what we set our mind to.
Right. So what are your majors?
We're both.
You just talked over each other. What did you just say?
We're both political science majors, actually.
All right. And so your aspiration is?
I think that both of us want to go to law school.
All right. So no political affiliation in terms of being like a state representative or senator and all those other things? Or, looking at what your role is here in student government, any other governmental type aspirations after you graduate?
For me, at least, I've thought about it, but I don't know. First, I definitely still want to tackle going to law school, being a practicing attorney, and then we'll see what happens in the future. I don't know. I really don't know.
Right.
Yeah, to me, that was always the dream, like go to law school and then run and just continue public servitude. And I'm studying public administration. And I think I would definitely like to start in local government. I kind of grew up at like city halls. My dad's an architect, so I always saw the building department and I was like, wow, like there's so many, it's so multifaceted. You don't always think, you think government and you think politicians, but you don't think counselors and, everybody who works in city hall from the building department all the way up. So it's always been a thought of mine. This job has definitely taught me to have thicker skin. But I think I'm kind of leaning just more the legal route now, and we'll see what comes in the future.
So you just brought up a nice buzzword for me, thicker skin, or words, I should say. In what ways has your skin been toughened?
I always say it, one of the hardest jobs I've ever had was being a sorority president, because anytime you did anything, you're facing your constituents every day. They're your best friends, they're your sisters. And that was always really hard because, you want to be the president brings the best out of the chapters. And, Woody Joseph, who used to be the director of OFSL, said, if you finish your presidency and everyone loves you, you did something wrong. And it's hard not to want to be loved by all your sisters who you loved from the start. And fortunately, we ended up on a really strong year and a really great foot. But I think the same goes here. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy. And, it came to a point where I realized that's never going to be the case. And even students have differing opinions from each other. So it's impossible to please everyone. But then hearing that you hurt a student, it's quite literally heartbreaking, because you want to make every single student happy at every moment, but it's quite literally impossible. So it's how do you make those decisions that's going to impact the majority in the most positive way. So just kind of learning to accept that, and how do you make it better for the students who may not be super happy at that moment.
I got you. So who's the shout out to in terms of your sorority? What sorority is that?
AE Phi.
AE Phi. What?
Yes.
Is there some type of a service component to that sorority, or how is it kind of established?
Yeah, so we're a Pan-Hellenic sorority, so they're considered social sororities, but we were actually part of the reason I joined my sorority. To me, it's the most beautiful story. In 1909, sororities were very exclusive. You know, they were for white Christian women only. And my sorority is a Jewish sorority, and it was founded on the values of accepting everyone. And I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And actually, part of the beautiful thing about it is when we were building our chapter, Delta 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 helped establish what our sorority is nationally, which is funny because Stephanie's in Tri Delta. So I think it's like a cute little thing that goes hand in hand. But to me, I just love that value that, you know, we were founded on being a place where everyone can call home, because at that time that didn't exist. So that's, you know, and our service values are, we focus on ovarian and breast cancer, and also pediatric AIDS.
Okay, cool. So Stephanie, as a sorority girl, what does sisterhood mean to you?
I think sisterhood, and speaking specifically about my chapter, I think it means everything to me. I really saw that when I ran for vice president with Sabrina. And throughout that journey, it was a very hard journey, I think, for me and Sabrina, just because it was hard for us to really balance work, balance school. The campaign, it took I'm not gonna lie to you, it took a really toll on me, a mental toll on me, just because it was very hard to keep up with everything. And so on days that I found myself really struggling, kind of not feeling down particularly, but feeling very stressed and things like that, you know, I always had my sisters to always kind of motivate me, to have my back, you know. On the 3 days of the election, we had to table and get as many students to vote. I just saw a lot of my sisters just out there, you know, encouraging other students to vote and things like that. So that was very, you know, that really spoke to me, and I now know that they were going to have my backs forever.
Nice, nice. So when you and Stephanie and Sabrina, when you both got together and decided that you were going to run, was there a conversation about who would be president, who would be vice president, or how did that whole thing come about?
It was actually like the most stressful thing, because part of the reason Stephanie and I ran is because we had been approached by multiple people. And, you know, sometimes people just assume you're going to be the vice president. And that is not a fun feeling, to be completely honest with you. When people just say, oh yeah, you're the girl, you'll be VP, or you're also a girl, you'll be VP, because it happens from every way. It's never a good feeling. So we both kind of sat there. It was like very like, who wants to be president? And then we just kind of had that conversation, and it was super easy. And that's kind of how I knew that we were going to be a good team, because we both were always very honest with each other and good about talking about our hopes and aspirations, but also our fears, and motivating each other. So that whole campaign conversation kind of started, you know, like, how fun would it be if we ran? And then we were like, that's terrifying. And then we were like, oh, wait. And it started to become real, like more real as we came to it. So we decided pretty late in the game, I would say. It's not traditional that you decide very late into winter. But, you know, we decided very, very late, and it was a very great decision, and we're so ecstatic.
Yeah. So the process is you have to like put in some paperwork, or?
Yeah, there's a declaration of candidacy, and then you need, I believe it's 500 signatures, a petition to be placed on the ballot. And then from there, you go into the active campaigning process once that opens up. And then that's when you start seeing all the signs pop up around campus and all the shirts being passed out. And then you have those 3 days of the active campaign.
So I can imagine, Stephanie, that there were more than just the two people who were running against each other. You had your opponents were definitely dwindled down, maybe from a larger pool of individuals who tried to run.
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
So I'm just wondering, like, so I know you had opponents that ran. Can I imagine that only two people decided to run this year, or were there other people? And if there were other groups or teams or duos that wanted to run, How many were there that didn't maybe came down to you two? Was there like a runoff, and then you all were the two that were competing against one another?
No, I think it was just us two. It was just us and the other opponents. And Sabrina and I kind of say this a lot. We're so happy there wasn't a runoff, just because, you know, if there was a runoff, you would have to go. So it would be spring break, you take that break off, and then the following week you would have to campaign for those 3 days all over again, essentially, and get as many votes. And we know from experience that we won the election, in the week of spring break, COVID hit. So imagine just doing a whole election, a whole runoff again, trying to get as many students to vote during a pandemic. You know,
Right.
that would have been very chaotic. And Sabrina and I kind of say this every single day. We're so blessed that that didn't happen to us.
Right. So there weren't a lot of people. So it's really like a rite of passage, because the people that you were running against were also in leadership as well, within SGA, and so the slate was then just decided that there would only be two people running. Have there been times when 3 or 4 different people ran against each other?
Absolutely. I think this year it just kind of happened that way. We thought there were going to be more candidates because we had heard, talk about other tickets, but it really just comes down to that first week of declaration of candidacy, where you fill out that official paperwork and get those petitions and signatures in, and then go from there. But our freshman year, when it was the Josh and Jad election, I want to say that there was 3 or 4. There was 3. There were 3 tickets. And last year before us, there were 3 as well. So this is the first time in a while we've seen 2.
Okay.
Actually, the year before there was 4.
So it's 4. Okay. I did not know that. I mean, I just thought maybe, just like, when we think about our politics that are happening today, that, you get the top 2 runners and you see what happens from there.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And our election commission's working really hard. We want a lot of students to run. We want it to be, a real style election. So our election commission is working really hard on outreach, and they're doing such a great job, and, trying to encourage students to run. And this is, again, the greatest job to me in the world. So I would encourage everyone to apply and try to do it.
That's good. So when you think about your platform and COVID, what's going on? Are you realizing your dreams for your platform?
I think early on, kind of when COVID hit and we were transitioning into our role, we knew from the start that our platforms were going to change. We already we knew that we had to kind of make COVID-centered initiatives, but even now, although we're still trying to kind of deal with this whole pandemic, and do as much for students, I think even our platforms before even COVID hit, we're still trying to accomplish them. I know some of them are not feasible at the moment, but that doesn't mean we're not going to fight for them, hopefully maybe in the spring or later on.
Okay, nice. So let's transition into maybe equity, inclusion, and diversity. And just when you hear those terms, what comes up for you when you think about UCF?
Again, I think it just goes back to that home aspect. And, how I always ask myself this, I'm like, how did I come from a 99.9% Cuban community? In my school, I went to a school that from pre-K to 8th grade, if you didn't speak Spanish, if you weren't Cuban, you were the minority in that situation. And it was, I remember growing up and being like, how do you not, I think I had 3 out of 100 students not speak Spanish. And it was odd to me, and how do I go from that environment to coming to a school of 72,000, 4 hours from home, and still feel like home? And I think it comes down to UCF's passion for creating a diverse community, for making it feel like home. And I don't think it's used as a blanket statement. I really think it's something that the university strives for. And I always ask that to myself. I was like, how did I make that transition and feel comfortable? I talked about it today. And how did we make Blanco our new home, and how are we happy here? Looking at law schools now, and we're like, I wish UCF just had a law school so I could stay at UCF forever. It'd probably be here for the next 90 years if I could. But I think it just goes back to that home aspect.
Nice. How about you, Steph?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of how Sabrina said about transitioning, it was very hard. Just kind of like she said, I'm from Miami. the population there is mostly Hispanic. You know, I'm surrounded by my Hispanic family all the time, and it was definitely hard kind of coming to Orlando. I definitely felt that culture shock just because I spent my entire life in Miami and I didn't know anything else other than Miami. So when I came to Orlando, it was definitely a culture shock, but definitely slowly kind of having after some months here in Orlando, I kind of learned to find myself in the community, and kind of like how Sabrina said, it was UCF became a home to me. And definitely I resonate with, if UCF out of law school, I would for sure stay here just because again, I think UCF kind of welcomed me into the community and I definitely found my home here.
Yeah. So what's your top choice for school to go to?
For me, I'm definitely kind of wanting to stay in Florida, so I'm for sure going to apply to all schools in Florida.
Okay. How about you, Sabrina?
I'm so torn, and I think, you know, my whole dream has always been get out of Florida and go away. My cousin went away and did law school in DC, and I love DC. But little by little, I start to realize that I am a family-oriented person, and I don't know if I could go away. So I don't know. I'm still looking at my choices. I would for sure only stay on the East Coast. I have family in Virginia, and I have family in Florida, so I'm probably in one of those two areas. But I think I'm really leaning towards Florida.
Nice. So tell me something I don't know about you. I don't know you that well, so there's a whole host of things. You don't have to go too deep.
I'm really trying to think here. I'm a big Hispanic like music fan, like if that makes sense, like Latin rap. I'm a big fan of that.
Okay. So are you a dancer, or you just like to listen to music?
I just like to listen to it. No means am I a dancer. I probably have 2 left feet.
Uh-oh.
I think mine would be, which I haven't done in so long, but I am a stress baker. So whenever I am stressed, it is just, and it makes no sense because I'll be at my like really just about to like peak of stress and explosion, but I'll just stop and take like 2 hours to bake treats for my friends. And in high school, my friends loved it. They'd be like, "Are you stressed today? Can you bring tomorrow?" So I'd show up to school like once a month or twice a month with cupcakes, brownies galore, and I bring them to my friends and teachers because that's just my stress reliever. And just taking the time to just bake something is really relieving my stress.
So you just said that you don't do it too often now. So that means that there's not a lot of stress?
No, it means there's so much stress. There's no time to bake. No, I'm kidding. No, I think what I enjoyed doing was my mom and I would do it a lot, or I would call my grandmothers and like we would do them together. Here, I've really been meaning to do it because I have like finally like a full kitchen, because I used to not have like a whole kitchen that I could just spend 3 hours baking in. So I'm really going to probably take advantage of it now while I have this kitchen here.
Well, that might be pretty cool if you could tie being a lawyer with being a baker. Can you imagine like a little shop? You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to buy some of my things, but at the same time, I give you great law advice, and you can take me on as your counselor.
Perfect. Right there while I'm baking, and then no stress.
No stress. I have a couple of law books over here and over there, so you can keep your practice going. That's pretty neat. So, Stephanie, you are a part of my leadership council, and you have a task that you've been working on with the student organization that we're looking to build, the ambassador program. Any thoughts or questions or things that you want to talk about with regards to that program?
Yeah, I'm actually super excited. So myself, as well as Tanya, who's also in the leadership council, we've been kind of working on the kind of like the structure of how the program is going to look like. Definitely, and going towards your vision, you definitely kind of hashed out what it's going to look like, kind of what the leadership of the program is going to be, kind of what the substance of what the members of the program are going to do. So I'm definitely very excited. I sent you, I don't know if you've seen it already, but I definitely did send you kind of like a rough draft proposal of what we envisioned.
I apologize. It's been a crazy week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Don't worry about it. But yeah, definitely, we're very excited to kind of start with this program.
Yeah, yeah. So, so those of you who are out there listening, the ambassador program is going to be set up to be like student advisors to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And the work that they're going to do is to help us kind of grow our, I guess, our impact on the college campus. So they're going to be trained to be facilitators of difficult dialogues. That's one thing. And whenever we have programming out of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, they'll be our ambassadors. They'll be the ones who will be our MCs and will kind of host our guests if we have any guests and things along those lines. And so really excited about what they'll be able to bring. The plan is for them to meet once a month and to kind of really advise the leadership on all things that students need on our campus. And so, and we'll have liaisons to the student government. And so that's really going to be pretty cool as well. And so, Sabrina, what's your thoughts on the ambassador program?
Stephanie's been updating me, and I think it is so exciting. I know we spoke a little bit about it last year when you were first trying to gather all those ideas together. And I think, every stride we take to create programming like this and those mentorship opportunities with students and that guidance is very, very important. So Stephanie's been giving me all the updates, and I'm so excited.
That's cool. That's good. So what other things are on your mind when you think about your leadership and you think about UCF? What comes up for you all?
Well, a lot of things. I think for me, first is just this realization of how quick time is flying. November is right around the corner, and we have this elaborate platform. And I think the number one thing Stephanie and I have discussed this year is that you can't accept COVID. You have to embrace it and really just take it and run with it and see what you can do to just really just embrace it during these times. So we've really been looking at that. And as this year starts to really get close to the end, I think we're so excited to really have just been part of this with student government and working with so many different entities. And we're so excited with Dr. Cartwright and him coming in and his plans for the university. And I think it's really been an exciting year. And despite every struggle that's come along the way, we're glad that we could have been part of it. And I think we've done a really great job at UCF of embracing it rather than just accepting the pandemic.
Yeah, he was my first guest for the podcast, and we had a good time on Wednesday. So I'm glad that you all were agreeing to be my second round, and so it's been a really good, I guess, indicator that we can be this for the university. We can provide this voice for those who need to know what's going on, and so anything exciting happening for SGA that students may need to know or faculty and staff may need to know right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the greatest things that we just launched, and I think it's going to be really cool for students to have is we just launched a program called Lazy Checks, and it was created by a former UF and UCF student. And when the pandemic hit, we all of us kind of went remote. We had to do our assignments through the internet. We had to log in through Zoom and things like that. So it was a hard transition, I feel, for a lot of students. Mm-hmm. And this idea kind of stemmed from that. And they kind of said, well, now that we're going to have a lot of students basically go remote and do a lot of work from home, they created this program where we're able to kind of link our web courses to this program, and we're able to get texts on our phones about the assignments, exams, anything that we have, lectures, anything we have due that day. So I'm actually in this program right now, and it's free for a whole month for students, for all students to sign up. And it's amazing because, again, I have this job, I have a lot of things on my mind that, again, we are students and, our studies do come first, but the stresses of life just sometimes, my mind is just everywhere. And the fact that I get text messages of my assignments every single day at exactly 8 a.m. is great, because I know, okay, I know I need to do this by this day, or I have this due on Sunday and I know I need to complete that by that time. So it's a pretty amazing program, and I really encourage students to really sign up. I think it's going to definitely help within their studies.
Nice. So it's like another calendar system that really keeps you on your toes with regards to that. That's excellent. Really good. Who was the brainchild?
I think it was, I'm not sure, and Sabrina, you can probably speak more about this, but it was the UCF student who kind of came to us, specifically to Sabrina about this program.
Nice, nice, nice.
I believe he was a computer engineering student.
Yes, and it's a UCF and a UF student. They've worked so hard, and I think they really just evaluated the struggles students are facing during the pandemic and just in general. I've been using it. It's so beneficial, just getting a text every morning of what your assignments are for the day. It's really, really great. So we wanted to provide that service for free for students because I think it's just incredible, especially during these times.
So that's a pretty cool thing, right? So SGA is responsible for helping students stay on track of things. And so what should students know about SGA and how they can be helpful and beneficial to, them as they matriculate through UCF?
I think that, you should always know that SG is here as a resource and we're multifaceted in what we do. We have 3 different branches and then the election commission that we all serve different purposes and benefiting you. If you get sent to student conduct and you need an advisor, come to the attorney general. If you need someone to advocate on your behalf and you're having a problem in a class with a professor, with another student, whatever's going on, we can help you in that aspect. If you're passionate about changing, UCF and helping it grow, come to student government. If you want a fun event and a fun promo item, I just think we're so multifaceted and we have a lot of passion for advocacy, but we also want to have fun events that really just embody our campus culture. So, just that we're multifaceted and we're here to direct you whenever you need.
So what is the actual infrastructure of SGA? You were saying that the attorney general and things along those lines. If somebody was new to the campus or new to hearing about SGA, what different aspects are part of that and that people can be a part of and join?
Yeah, I think kind of the way that I explain to students who don't know what student government here at UCF is that, we have our 3 branches, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, and then we have our election commission. And I think the executive branch kind of changes based on the administration. So the president, the vice president is elected every single spring. And based on their kind of the size of their cabinet, kind of based on their platforms and what they want to accomplish, they build their own cabinet based on, just based on that. So it could either cabinet sometimes can either be a kind of a small number, maybe 10 members, or it could be 20 members at one time. So it really depends on the administration at that time. The legislative branch, they do an amazing job at advocating for students, giving students funding, and giving them opportunities to go to conferences that kind of helps them pursue in their future careers, build that network and things like that. And then the judicial branch definitely does fight for our rights. So they really do help students whenever they have, for example, grade appeals or parking appeals. They really emphasize on trying to fight for the students' rights.
Nice, nice. And so, is there, you said you win and you're the president that next go round. Is like some organizations have it where your president elects president and past president. Do you all have those type of roles as well, or is it like a one and done type thing when you're president?
It's kind of like one and done. So you're elected in March, and then come May, you are sworn in, inaugurated, whatever you want to call it. Those few months in between, you are serving as president-elect, where you're kind of just shadowing the president and vice president. And really, that's when we start doing our transition meetings. So, Kyler and Madeline were so great. We had weekly because the pandemic had just hit. So we had weekly meetings with us where they just kind of gave us updates on, certain things and educating us on like certain aspects that really just you may not have realized. Like they gave us like one of the best pieces of advice they gave us were daily phone calls. So every morning and every evening, Stephanie and I call each other just to recap the day. And that was like a really great piece of advice they gave us. And, then they start to bring us along on meetings and we're just kind of shadowing and getting to know people and making those connections from the start.
Nice, nice. So I want to open the floor up to our guests who are listening in. I have one question that's in the Q&A, and anyone who has any questions for Sabrina or Stephanie, please add them to the Q&A. But the question that I have here is, as student leaders and representatives of all students at UCF, what areas of inclusion do you think we need to work on at UCF?
You want me to go stop for you?
Yeah, you can go.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we always have to be looking at areas where we need to improve. And the number one thing is just listening to student voice. And I know technically I'm supposed to be the one who has those answers, but really we have to just listen to different scenarios. For me and Stephanie and what we've been talking about, it's really just creating that safe space for students to feel like they can open up about things without judgment. I've had my fair share of issues in certain areas, and I never felt comfortable to say anything. And I think it wasn't until I was in this role that I felt more comfortable to vocalize things. But I think the number one thing is just providing students that support, especially student leaders who need help navigating that. And I think, we have to really focus on, we look at diversity and inclusion and we look at student voice and opinion to make sure that we're grabbing students for these opinions, not based on a quota, not checking things off a checklist, but really because we want that diversity of thought. And that's something Stephanie and I really learned. We always felt, you can't have two women, you can't have two Hispanics because you're not going to be able to serve the student body well. But then we realized when you have the passion for caring about all students, it doesn't matter. I mean, on paper, Stephanie and I are practically carbon copies in a sense, law school, political science, Miami, but we both have different outlooks on leadership, and that's how we really come together and focus on all students. So I think, I'm sorry.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, that's how you look at it, right? It's like, people want to say you can't have, but the fact of the matter, what you just said is the intersectionalities that you have and your dreams and your aspirations are no different than any other student. You just happen to be housed in a different body or have a different cultural background. So when you think about that, what is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? When you graduate from UCF and people look back, and they will, over the year of COVID, what do you two want your legacy to be, that you want people to remember you by in your leadership?
I think, Dr. Frame asked us this question, and she said, at the end of the year, how are you going to measure success? And the number one thing, as simple as it may sound, I want students to look back and say they cared. And, they cared. They listened. I went to them. They heard me. And I think that's something that I've always prided myself on, is that I may not be able to make every solution occur. I may not be able to just have every initiative be completed. And that's been a really hard thing to accept during COVID. But if a student can look back and said, I felt heard and they cared, I think that would be the number one thing.
Nice. Stephanie, how about you?
I think I definitely agree with that. I think, kind of like Sabrina said, it's very hard to please everyone. And at the end of the day, that's not feasible. But as long as I get, that one student that was impacted by, this program that we did, or even like this conversation that we had, and I was able to affect their lives, I know that I made a change, and I'd be proud to say that I did that after my vice presidency.
Nice. There's another question that popped into the chat, and I'm going to get to that, but I want to ask you all, how are you including UCF downtown?
I've had classes, and Stephanie has too, at UCF downtown, and it's definitely something that we have been trying to create initiatives on and work with. Same goes with Rosen. I always say Rosen needs some TLC, and so does downtown. And those Connect campuses are part of our campus. And the beautiful thing is that we've realized, we visited, through the Florida Student Association and our years in student government, we visited other schools, and no one really has these types of Connect campuses that are so part of that, that community and that home aspect. So we've been working on different initiatives for our Connect and remote campuses. We're coming up with an initiative soon where we'll be taking, a bus and a shuttle to different areas where our students have stayed home, and those will include our Daytona and Cocoa campuses. We're looking at creating a more established Pride Commons at downtown. We're looking at implementing food options at Rosen because they don't have any food on campus right now. So we're really trying to focus on all of our Connect and not our non-main campus locations.
Nice. And when you think about this pandemic and the things that COVID has brought to us, it kind of brought us the opening of downtown. I think we got through maybe a part of a year before it really hit us, and so there was already going to be a challenge with us kind of being connected, right? We had the shuttle buses, we had all those things that would make us all be connected. People were like, okay, what's going on? Is my class going to be downtown? How do I get back from downtown to this and that? And so then COVID hit, right? And so now it's like it's an extended opening to it, because when we finally are back up 100%, we're going to probably still need to do the things and embrace downtown differently than we have already, because we still haven't really gotten our sea legs, so to speak, right? We still have to understand what downtown means to UCF, right? And so any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think, no matter what, regardless of whether it be COVID, I think it's really important to still stay connected to our kind of campuses. So I think that's why Sabrina and I really wanted to, even if, no matter with COVID, we still wanted to try to accomplish our platforms regarding the other kind of campuses, because at the end of the day, our students are going to these campuses and they still are reaping the benefits of these different campuses. And, if there's something that those campuses need, it's our job to advocate for the students and our job to get that done.
Have you done anything tying in SGA with Valencia?
Sabrina, I don't know if you know, do you know the answer to this question? Because I'm not sure.
I think with our agencies working downtown, I believe Valencia students are able to come in, and we've had a few Valencia students reach out. We had some at our watch party show up as well. So when we have our student government events, we pretty much open them to all UCF and Valencia students that do show up that are part of the downtown campus.
So another question from the Q&A. What challenges have COVID and the racial injustices brought to achieving campus-wide diversity?
I think the number one challenge that COVID brought for campus-wide diversity is definitely the ability to gather. I think over summer, when I tell you it was heartbreaking that the one thing students were longing for was to gather and be together. And whether it was protest or hold hands or whatever the case may be, COVID really restricted that. I mean, think about it. When was the last time like you shook someone who wasn't in your house's hand or hugged them? And I think that was something, as simple as it seems, that really was needed and students were longing for, that ability to gather and be together. Because when situations like these occur, normally the first thing we do is we come together and we talk and we're sharing that moment. And I think that was the number one thing. The other thing is, students are aching right now. There are open wounds, and the number one thing we need to do, I think, is just listen. And that's something, Stephanie and I really take seriously, is you can't just always be the loudest person in the room. You have to sit back and hear students and learn. And one of the biggest things we learned over summer, we were really pushing caps, and we were saying, with everything going on, go get therapy and we're here. And a lot of students came back to us and they said, hey, my culture isn't pro therapy. We're pro spiritual advisors. So, and taking the time to really listen during those situations, especially when there's so many students with, open wounds right now, I think that's something that we've learned a lot of. And again, COVID doesn't give us that ability to have that face-to-face empathy and emotions, because we're learning how to emulate those kinds of things on Zoom. So that's something that I think has created a challenge.
Interesting. How about you, Steph?
Yeah, I think definitely the biggest one is to gather, one of the biggest things that, the UC community was able to kind of all share was the fact that although we are a big university, we're still able to kind of be very close to each other, if that makes sense. And the fact that, COVID restricted us from that, it was very hard at first, but I think now, kind of slowly kind of getting into like the back of things, not normalcy, because, again, we have to embrace COVID, but the fact that we still want students to feel connected to the campus. Right now we're trying to do hybrid events, whether, have in-person components and hybrid components. No matter what, I think Sabrina and I's task for right now is still making sure that these students are feeling connected with the UCF, no matter where they are, no matter where their background is.
Nice. So we're coming up on about 10 minutes before the hour, about 8 minutes before the hour. What are some things that are on your mind that you want to share, or any questions that you might have for me as we get ready to close out today? Anything?
What strides do you think we've been taking with diversity and inclusion, and where do you think we need room for improvement, and maybe how can student government help in that aspect?
I tapped into you all almost immediately when I started working in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So from Madeline before Stephanie, it was, kind of a marriage of trying to say that we don't want to just be working in our little silos away from each other and not really understanding and supporting. Well, one of the things that I heard so much from students was that you're not listening to us, and you're not catering to our needs, and not in a selfish way were they asking that question. It was more so that we had to come, in some regards, to their level, right? You meet people where they are. I'm so glad that you talked about mental health counseling. I'm a counselor, educator, and that's my training in some regards. And so it is for us to be able to kind of communicate and work with our students, especially right now, right? With all the stuff that they're going through with regards to the pandemic, the stuff, the racial injustices that are going on. But I want to be able to open up the platform for actually having some really deep and really meaningful conversations around race and culture. And it doesn't have to be stressful, right? I don't want to make Sabrina go cooking. It can really be about sitting and being with each other and understanding each other's life story and the narratives that we all bring to the table and why we should all be at the table. And so that's kind of where we are, or I am in my thinking, because I want to be inclusive. But I also want people to understand that people who look like me, people who live like you two do, sometimes we have some hurdles or barriers that we have to go over. And it's not like we're asking for a handout. I don't think either one of you two asked for a handout. You were like, look, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. If you include me, you will find how great we can continue to be, right? And so that's really what the message is from my perspective, is that we're here, we can do this work, we can do it together. We're not asking to do it in silos, we're asking to be a part of. And so many times people think when we talk about diversity and inclusion that we're excluding someone that was already a part of the mix, right? No, we're saying, no, let us be in the mix with you. And so your thoughts, what do you think about that? I mean, we want to be in the mix with you. We have a lot that we can contribute to this equation.
Absolutely. I think that's the number one thing. And Stephanie and I are so big on collaboration and working together and having those conversations. And, it's something we learned. We're so proud to be the first Hispanic president, the first female ticket, and the first Latina ticket, but we're not that. That's not the baseline of us. And I think that's what we try to keep in mind, when we do these conversations and we gather student opinions, is, again, you can't have that checklist, and you just got to gather students together and have these meaningful conversations. We actually talked about it the other day, where we have this diversity training task force, very unofficial in student government. We just meet and talk about, what diversity training means to us. We've been looking at different ones so we can provide student feedback on different trainings across the board as BOG starts to look at mandating diversity training for universities. And one of the things we realized last week at the meeting was we're longing for having these conversations. And this is something we did a lot in Volunteer UCF. Is I thought my weekly meetings were going to be, this is what I'm working on, have a great day. But really, they were challenging conversations, and it really just helps you become more educated. So we're going to start doing that in student government. And the best diversity training is really hard conversations. And
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And people fear those conversations because they think that it's going to turn bad, right? I'm like, no, it actually, they are phenomenal. They do a greater good when you have these conversations. So last minute thoughts, maybe something that you want to share with the community, each of you, before we close out for today.
If there's just one thing that I can say, to those who are watching, please let us know what we can do better. Sabrina and I really try to kind of really do serve the entire student body, but sometimes, we miss things, or we don't think about these things. So
Human.
yeah, we're human. Sometimes we make mistakes. So if there's anything that we can do better, anything that we haven't done yet, just please send it our way, and we're more than happy to have those conversations and see what we can do.
Nice. How about you?
I think the Stephanie hit it right on the money. And, I think I really just don't even know how to put it into words, but there's nothing Stephanie and I like more than just meeting and talking to different students and forming those relationships. And we love it. So if you're ever like wanting to come to us, like, don't hesitate or think, yeah, they wouldn't want to talk to me. We do. And I think that's something I really wish I had like better words to explain it, but we did this job because we love meeting students and we want to have conversations. I feel like it sounds like I'm like trying to make like friends, but like I am, but like I'm just like begging for friendship. But it's one of our favorite things. And if you ever feel like you want to come to student government, we're always there. And you can just, now we're kind of Zooming it. So if you ever just want to set up a quick Zoom link, that's something Stephanie and I would love to do.
Well, I love you both. I enjoyed having the time to meet you outside of this platform, but also with the work that you're doing. I'm so proud of you all. I'm here. I'm going to be there, always kind of cheering you on as you go through this. And so there's something to be said about having first and being a part of that. I think your legacy will speak for itself, and I'm just so proud of you all. And I'm glad that I have an opportunity to meet you. And so we're going to close out right now. And I want to let people know who are out there. If you're interested in being a guest, we will have a Qualtrics on the ODI website for those members of the university community who would like to come and join me and be a part of this. I think that we can have some good times, some fun, some nice fireside chats to really see what's happening at UCF. And to also just be transparent about the things that are going on campus. That really is one of the goals is for us to do. So I'm excited for our next Wednesday. I will be speaking with a very, very, very good friend of mine. Her name is Naomi Tutu. She was a mentor. She was an educator of mine. She also happens to be the daughter of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And we all know him as a very spiritual and renowned leader. And so her credible life story stands on its own. But I want you all to kind of get to know her as well. And she's agreed to be my guest on next Wednesday. Next Friday, we're going to talk with some leaders, some student leaders of the political party organizations here on our campus. And we're just going to talk about the election and what the future of America holds with the election being so close to us. So you all have a very, very phenomenal rest of your day. And thank you for joining us for Matters of Diversity with Dr. B. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Stephanie and Sabrina, if you're still on, thank you so much. Really enjoyed